Hi, I'm Micah Clark. Thank you for joining us today. I didn't really dress for this video because we have another video that we're working on. We're excited about showing you, but we had some technical difficulties with an expert on marijuana, which is an issue that, as you've probably seen, the media is really pushing. Some legislators are pushing to legalize. It kind of gets under my skin when we see these issues with tax dollars and they see a new revenue source, and legislators don't often consider the harmful sides of those things. So we will get that video to you as soon as we can rework that one. So today, I just wanted to give you a quick legislative update for this week. Now, in my email, I hate doing this, but I made a mistake again. I want to mention something because it's an issue that was very big last year, and some of you are still very passionate about this issue. But I wrote about Senate Bill 287, which is a bill that would require partisan school board elections. You know, the only office on the ballot you ever vote for that does not have a Republican, Democrat, or Independent label behind it is the school board. And so some legislators want to make that requirement so school board members identify with the political party so voters can better know maybe what their worldview is. And I submitted testimony in writing. The hearing came up very quickly. I wasn't able to attend. I submitted testimony in support of this, but the bill had someone else down there who was testifying, and they got the bill confused, texted me that it had passed 7-2, and that was a different bill. A lot of things are going on. It's very hectic down there, and the computers that I look at for the General Assembly sometimes don't track a vote. They don't show up for a day or two later sometimes. So I made a mistake. I should have followed up on that. The bill is still alive. That's Senate Bill 287, but they will not vote on that until this coming week. So they didn't vote on this week, like I said, and there's a lot of controversy over this bill. Most of the testimony was against it. We'll see if they pass it. I think there'll be some changes to it, but the other side will argue that school board should not be partisan. But as anybody knows who's run for school board or served on a school board or observed their school board, there are political worldview differences and party differences. There are a lot of issues that come up at a school board that break down over political ideologies. So I think it's kind of, I wouldn't say a joke, but kind of unusual that we think not requiring a school board member to divulge their political affiliation is somehow going to make a school board issue nonpartisan. Or, in fact, I'll say this was part of the testimony I delivered. The state's #1 school board, the top school board in Indiana, is called the Indiana State School Board. It is a partisan school board. The people who appoint that by statute, by design of that board, there could only be a certain number of Republicans and Democrats on the state school board. So every person that the governor, the House, Speaker of the House, or the President pro tem appoints to the state school board, which sets our governing policy, their political affiliation is known. And so if the governor knows the person's political affiliation when they appoint them, I think voters should know someone's political affiliation if they choose to vote for them on the school board. And we get all sorts of questions about this. Every election, we do voters' guides, but people don't know much about school board members because they're at the bottom of the ballot, and there's nothing on there to say where their worldview is politically. It won't fix all problems, but I do think it might help voters cast a more informed ballot. So we'll see what they do with that on Senate Bill 287 next week. But another bill, and this week there weren't a lot of issues that would be in AFA's wheelhouse. Some things we're watching. So I'm bringing up some bills just because simply because they're moving, not necessarily because I testified or we took a position. We didn't on these other bills, but I thought you'd find these of interest, as I know your interests go beyond what our core mission is, as do mine personally. So this is a bill that's interesting, Senate Bill 284. It cuts early voting from a month back to 2 weeks. And I know early voting is popular with a lot of people. We have to remember, historically, early voting is very new. It's not something we did very often. And there were people driving horse and buggies to get to the voting booth years ago on election day. So this cuts it back to 2 weeks. I think the argument behind this is that This costs a lot to man and staff the clerk's offices, the early voting offices. There is a proposal in the bill, I think, to include more early voting centers so that people can vote when they do limit that. It also has a provision in there for a closed primary, which would require, when you vote in the primary, to have a political affiliation. It doesn't mean you can't change that. It doesn't mean you can't vote in one or the other next time, but you have to declare it. And we'll see what happens with that. There's a lot in that bill. You might want to look at that, see what you think of that. There might be parts of it you like, dislike, but that's something I hear a lot about from you, and that's Senate Bill 284 about election reform. Another bill that, particularly in Indianapolis, got a lot of attention last year on talk radio. There was a tragic situation in, I believe, Hendricks County, where I think it was a young boy was mistreated who had special needs, and the parent didn't find out, or mom and dad didn't find out, and it was kind of a tragic story. And so there was a lot of talk about, what's going on, what happens if someone with special needs, or any student, frankly, is being mistreated or bullied by other students, or heaven forbid, by a teacher. And so this bill, 1285, that's a House Bill, House Bill 1285, would require cameras in special education classrooms, in what they call seclusion areas for kids who are misbehaving, or in timeout areas. There would be a camera there so that the school and the parents can see if a student is being mistreated. It's sad that we have to do that, but we certainly have the technology to do it now. And so there was a lot of debate over cost on that bill, but I think it's something we should consider just for the safety of kids. And of course, you don't really want to make a law out of one situation, but that situation was so bad that I do think a lot of parents would like the security to know that their children are being observed by outside eyes, by the parents or by the school administration, to make sure a student's not mistreated in such a case. That's House Bill 1285. They had a hearing on that. I believe they'll vote on that this week. Another bill that passed, and it's a bill that's very timely right now for what's going on in the nation with President Trump, with Tom Homan and the Department of ICE and DHS on immigration. It's House Bill 1393, passed by a new legislator, a good friend of mine who worked in the Attorney General's office, Garrett Bascom, down in southeast Indiana. Garrett's one of his first bills he passed, and I think it's a big one, requires Indiana police to notify either ICE or the Department of Homeland Security when they arrest somebody for a felony or a significant misdemeanor who the police believe to be here illegally. I think a lot of police are doing that, but in like a sanctuary city or maybe a more liberal city, maybe that's not happening. And this just requires the police to do that if they encounter somebody who's committing a serious crime and they arrest them, that they need to notify ICE or DHS. I just saw a poll 2 weeks ago. It was a Reuters Ipsos poll, I believe. 66% of Americans support the deportation of people who are here illegally. Now that's going to change. We're going to see a lot of stories about sympathy stories. The media's certainly, I don't think, on the side of doing that. So you're going to see a lot of emotional tugs on that issue. But this is a bill that ties into everything we're seeing in the media and everything you're weighing your views on as you see these things taking place very quickly for border security and the problem with 10 million people or more here illegally. So I thought that might interest you. That's House Bill 1393. That's all I really have today. I do appreciate your support. Next 2 weeks are going to be very busy. The crossover day for bills is February 20th. A few days before that will be the deadlines for final day for second reading, which is amendments, final day for third reading, which is the final vote, and then bills will cross over. All live bills that saw full action, not partial, but got a committee vote, a floor vote on amendments, and a floor vote on the final vote will then change chambers. Now they don't change the bill numbers. So In 2 weeks after the 20th, if I talk about a Senate bill that's live, it will be in the House, and vice versa. So you'll want to call your state representative about Senate bills after the 20th, and call your House member about Senate bills after the 20th. So we have about a week and a half left, a full week, maybe a couple days after that, where we will see committee hearings still taking place. So if you're watching a bill and there's almost 2,000 of them, and they haven't had committee hearing yet, if it doesn't happen next week with a hearing and a vote, that bill will die. So if you're passionate about a bill, now's the time to make a call and ask for a hearing on that bill. And then we will try and keep our eyes on what bills are being heard next week. I'll let you know next week. We have some expectations of a few bills I'm watching that we're hearing might get a hearing, that we're being told might get a hearing. And so we'll see. There's a lot of issues that I care about as AFA's director that I think I'd like to see the legislature move on. But it is always a race against the clock and persuading committee chairman to do the right thing. And they're dealing with so many issues. We'll see. But I will say we do have a lot to work with. Even if nothing's heard next week that I want, we've got several bills I can continue to watch and talk to you about that I think are good public policy in Indiana. And then there's always the option or possibility where issues come up, there are amendments to these bills, so we have to watch those too. So we'll do our best to be your eyes and ears in the Indiana General Assembly, let you know what's going on. As always, your phone calls to your legislators are very important. You can find your legislator through the Find Your Legislator link at the Indiana General Assembly website. We'll have that here too on this email and in this video. But please contact your legislators. It's very important to do that. And again, thank you for your support of AFA and appreciate you joining us today. I'm Micah Clark with the American Family Association. Have a great weekend.